I would say a lot of us, well, obviously as Black men, our experience in this world is very particular to us, but definitely a lot of us having gone through university space, I would say, probably has known someone, knows of a friend, or has gone to different, like, assigned workshops or meetings and like having to do certain, like, group tests and studies on these things really. But the culture manifests itself in various ways. It doesn't even need to lead to quote unquote rape happening to be a part of like a culture, part of a kind of a system that's largely at the head, because it can happen to men as well too, but it is largely popularized at the behest um, of men against women, right? But it happens in all types of genders and sexual relationships in general. But uh, I would say kind of the term rape culture is a kind of blanket term that really refers to various things as far as like the way people communicate, act, talk around, all these various things that kind of influence the way in which the forms of sexual violence can be, put against somebody.
I think on my end, it took me a while to realize that, like, rape culture is a lot more than just the assault itself. It's like everything that kind of like perpetuates around it, and like the conversations we have, the things we kind of excuse. It's you know, like not even like sounding like 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 you caping for like women and things like that, but it's like literally like it's kind of like synonymous with misogyny. Like all of those things that go around like objectifying and women, even though it affects men, it's all about like it all stems from like the objectification of women, and just it's not just, oh, I assaulted her. It's everything that stands from that, from the way we speak to them, the way we speak about them when they're not around, all that stuff. It just like perpetuates a culture where women are lesser than men, and it's something that I didn't realize until after I came out of college. A lot of conversations weren't normal. You know what I mean? Like a lot of locker room talk wasn't cool, because like that's all encouraging like rape culture, as like hard as of reality that is to kind of accept.
Yeah, absolutely. And to build on Josh's point, I remember seeing a rape code. It was like a pyramid, where at the top is the act, but at the bottom is just like societal level, the way that we think from, if you have a male adult coming over and you got a daughter, putting the onus on her to, dress up, don't wear anything too revealing, to just systems of domination that really reinforce, from misogyny to homophobia to transphobia and, various systems of domination that enforce rape culture, the way that we think about, and the way that we treat survivors, and the way that we treat the people who assault others. And yeah, that's just what I think about in terms of like that whole pyramid, and how like below the act is like a lot of things that we've grown up thinking about, and like being enforced in us, that we don't even like, you don't even think about as being a part of and contributing to rape culture.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just to add on to that point, this whole learning of the culture in ways that don't necessarily mean the act itself, part of the music that we listen to continues to like go into our mind. And a lot of people don't realize that the music you listen to, things that you consume, affect how you think. So like some of the music that we listen to completely objectify women. And it's like a lot of this music we've been listening to since I've listened to music that objectify women since as long as I can remember, to be honest. Like I can't think of a time that it wasn't. It's just like we've become so normalized to this that it's common to hear music like that. So I think just other facets of American culture, not just American culture, world culture, go into play of the objectification of women, which helps build rape culture.
Just looking back at just growth throughout the school system and seeing, thinking back about situations with your friends, and not holding your friends accountable for, certain things, and seeing how, at times, even myself, I could say I contributed to rape culture, not knowing. But now, Um, to the piece about like music, celebrities as well, like people we look up to, rappers, artists, you know, holding them accountable. I know you probably heard T.I. has been in the news recently. Um, you know, just having role models in your life that you can hold accountable and that have positive values are extremely important.
Yeah, no, you hit on a good point when you said that, these things are, may have all probably contributed to it some way or another without directly knowing, or like, like until like you look back on it, you're like, yeah, that's something that, in looking at it, it's probably a part of the thing. And that's when you realize that it really is a part of it's a sociological concept, like that structure from how people interact with each other. And that's like outside of just you as a person, it is a larger thing created like that has been, kind of like Isaiah was saying, like it's normalized, right? So really this concept was like rape is pervasive, normalized, and it's because about society's attitudes about gender and sexuality as a whole, like, victim blaming, slut shaming, objectification, all those things, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because it's something I actually think about a lot. Because like for example, like on Twitter and things like that, like I always see like a lot of conversations that are held or like viral tweets and stuff like that, and I'm like, well, that don't apply to like Black people and Black men. Like we don't view women that way, the way like other cultures do. Like, or we don't, like. So I always like think about like those differences between like how like our culture, treats women, versus like how other cultures treat women. And I don't really know if I think it's any better or any worse. I do know, like, yeah, it's something I would love to hear your fellas' thoughts, because it's definitely just like, it's different, but like a piece of me wants to be like, we definitely treat this topic better than other cultures, but like, I can't say that definitively, and I can't say that knowing that like the majority of Black women aren't going to agree with that statement. You know what I mean? So like, it's hard. It's really conflicting when like, me, I'm like, oh, I don't treat women like that, but like every Black woman I know has experienced this.
I feel like to answer that, it's like very, very tricky. How I feel it's like two different answers. On one case, I feel like in the Black community, we have a lot of matriarchs and we have a lot of women who are the head of households of a lot of households. We know we have a mass incarceration problem. We know that a lot of Black fathers have been removed from the household. So in that sense, you kind of have to think about it where it's like, sometimes I feel like some of us are raised by our grandmothers, some of us are only raised by our mothers, single parent household. So I feel like sometimes Black men get a different viewpoint of a woman because of that. But then I also think about it where, as Black people, we dominate hip hop. Hip hop is the top selling thing. And just to tie it back onto music, most of the top hip hop people are objectifying women at a very, very mass scale. So I feel like it's no right or wrong answer. I feel like I could see kind of both sides.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about like how specifically, like as Black men, our view on like, rape and rape culture is different. And I'm just thinking about like that's my only point of reference. Like Black people, I haven't rubbed elbows too closely with white folks aside from the ones I went to school with or the people that I work with. But it seems to me, just like judging from stories of somebody like R. Kelly, who, was abused from a young age, it's oftentimes, if you're younger and it's an older person, it's viewed more as a badge of honor than anything, which is incredibly problematic in and of itself. So I don't know what it's like in different cultures, but I just know, even like Boosie and his son, right? When he was saying that he hired a prostitute to, do whatever to his son, it's viewed as a badge of honor, and that might be exceptional. But I think there are a lot of cases where that's the truth. So just from that vantage point, and just speaking on what I know of, like just from my experience and other people, that's kind of the sense that I get.
I think my confliction, now like you guys help me kind of articulate a bit. Like my confliction is like, I think like us as Black men, like we have like this respect for matriarchal figures. Like Like I grew up to a single mother, you know what I mean? Like, so like I have this natural respect for women that like, I also went to an all white public school in high school, you know, where I've seen them just, they don't have any regard for women. Like I've straight up heard like a white dude go, I'll rape her. And like, I'm like, oh, wait. You know what I mean? So like, I don't think, I've never heard like one of us be so explicit about that. But at the same time, like we also like have that subtle objectifying women at the same time. It's this weird hypocrisy that like I maintain, like, you know, I think every Black man maintains, where we, you know, enjoy the benefits of like when women are objectified. But like when it gets personal, we go like, all right, that's too far. Like when it comes to women in our lives, you know what I mean? So like, I think we gotta pick and choose like when we wanna like acknowledge when it's rape culture or not. But like, I definitely, now that I'm thinking about it, don't think it's as normalized to be explicit, like, yeah, I'll rape her. You know what I mean? Like as a joke. And that's what I've heard nonstop, like in undergrad and in high school, you know, and that's not from people that look like us.
I definitely understand what you're saying, Josh. I definitely feel as though there is like this concept that Black men, like, we don't joke about something as serious. I mean, we make jokes for sure. That's not even the point. But when it comes to things like that, I don't think we play around with things like that. But I would almost say it's pervasive, not to like acknowledge that it happens in our community, and it happens. I would think, just with my conversations with just different people, more often than you think. I feel like we have to like think to the point that there is a problem with mass incarceration of Black men, and I feel like it happens, or most sexual violence and sexual assault happen with people they know. I feel like that we don't. Black women still have this thing where they feel like they have to still protect Black men in a way. You know, I feel like that's something that has like to be addressed in a way, because like they know that they don't want to send somebody they know they love, they grew up with, to jail, but at the same time they know something wrong has happened, or even if they didn't know how something wrong has happened, just given how their age at the time. But I feel like it's seeing it through like our culture in more pervasive ways than anything. I do feel like music definitely plays a large role. And you see like crazy lyrics. Like my favorite, I get a liar to say my favorite rapper wasn't Lil Wayne, but Lil Wayne said some crazy things. You know what I'm saying? Rick Ross said some crazy things. You know what I'm saying? These are popular, known rappers. And I don't want to date myself, like I listen to Lil Wayne, just Rick Ross, and even the more upcoming rappers, you know, still say things in their music that sounds like, you know, like you wouldn't say this to like a person, another woman, or another person choosing like this respect to their sexuality, you know.
From my perspective, there's a fair amount of hypocrisy in the Black community, specifically with how Black men treat Black women. I think it's been mentioned that there's this kind of matriarchal kind of setup with Black men being raised by single mothers or grandmothers. But at the same time, I feel like Black men do treat getting women as a conquest. And when it's viewed like that, that can lead to different predatory tactics, different kind of just shady ways of going about things. And I think the word rape has a lot of power. And I think with that, Black men don't use it too often. But you don't have to say the word rape to not still be alluding to it with the things we say. And I think those type of jokes happen a lot in peer groups, specifically Black men peer groups. And I think that does have as much weight as, joking about rape that we might see in other racial groups as well.
Yeah, there is this great number of, you know, Black men or Black people in general being raised by, you know, through matriarchs, and largely it deals with a lot of histories of either, you know, mass incarceration being a huge part of it, you know, and like Black men, and like largely a lot of them not being at the homes. But you think about too, like it's always been like a constant struggle of like, you know, since you're being raised in this kind of matriarchal space, because of the way society has like, you know, been on, I'm talking specifically on Black men, it's like everything's it's about us fighting for ourselves, and it's all about tests of our masculinity as well too. So like always trying to prove something right? Or trying to prove a masculinity. And a lot of these ways, like largely, a lot of that is through the pursuit of like how many women you can get, or through the pursuit of, you know, making someone do something for you, right? Or, you know, how many, you know, people use the term like how many bodies you stacked up, right? Like that as a term alone, right? You think about like what, like literally seeing of someone's body like that, right? And it goes also, I'm thinking like all the way back, like histories of slavery, where like really even our bodies were controlled. So once we were freed, like the only thing we had control over was our own bodies. So like taking a claim of that and what that actually looks like, right? So you see as far as like these ideals of like people wanting to express their masculinity, and like so much so like it can lead to violent spaces where you see like even like, you know, young gay black men who are, you know, told that that's not okay for them to be gay, so they usually at times act out aggressively or are forced to, you know, either like, you know, have sex with a woman before they're even ready to, or really like as a way to like, you know, cure them of their homosexuality, right? All these things are part of this recreating this culture of like, you know, you have to be this kind of brute masculine and conqueror, really. And that is what it, and you mentioned like, you know, Boosie, you mentioned other folks too, like, you know, and like I'm even thinking like a T.I. and like how he like, you know, checked his daughter's hymen, like all these insane things about the control of the body at the behest of like of black men. And, you know, it goes to like, you know, senses of power structures and senses of like, you know, even through slavery, like, you know, black women were raped, right? And black men were raped as well too. That's less talked about. But this idea of once we were able to kind of claim and control our bodies, there's always been a fight of like, you know, proving that we are, you know, as powerful, as masculine, all these things, and we're able to wield that power in this way. And largely through that is like through the conquering, quote unquote, of people's bodies. That's how, like, I think over time we see that existing in many different ways.
Yeah, nah, that's a fact. And I think I'm just like thinking about the language, and I'm guilty of it sometimes too, just like the way we talk about sex,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you
You
know,
say it's normal. We all,
yeah, like
yeah.
you just like, oh yeah, did you smack, you crack, like whatever, like that's just the language, and you don't think about it, but it is violent. It's violent language when you talk about sex, you know. So that's exactly what came to mind when y'all talked about like bodies and the language around sex.
I got kind of question, because like I think Brandy made a really good point of just like how, like, I do think like we as black men, like I'll speak for myself personally, I can't speak for anybody else. Like I know like I fully know like the music I listen to, like the hip hop I listen to, like when they say some wild like all right, Rick Ross go put a Molly in her drink, she didn't even know it, right? I completely like acted like I didn't hear it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I heard it, I was like, ooh, he wilding, and then just completely ignored it, right? But at the same time, like if someone would disrespect any woman in my life, like in any way, that like I'm also gonna bug out. So like I wonder like what's the source of like that hypocrisy? Because like I personally struggle with it, and I think I'm getting better and better every day on like, you know, like recognizing exactly like how I'm feeding into like rape culture and stuff like that. And I think like Brandon, you said it real nice. Like the fact that we avoid saying the word rape in our conversations when that's exactly what we're talking about is probably like how we distance ourselves from like acknowledging our participation like in this culture, right? And that kind of like, you know, kind of made me go ouch a little bit, because I'm like, damn, like, do I do that? You feel me? Like do I actively like participate in this culture and just like this cognitive dissonance, like of me trying to like prove to myself that nah, I'm not part of it by like not even using the word. And like that's something I think about. But I'm interested, like, fellas, like, what do you think, like that hypocrisy that, you know, we know exists in Black culture? Like, what's the root of it? Like, where does that stem from?
If I can like start off, first of all, Josh, I appreciate you asking that question. I think that's a great question. I feel like it kind of begins at well, in my opinion, I feel like men are impressionable, but Black men are very impressionable. Like, and I feel like we always like are comparing, not necessarily always comparing, but like there is this level of like, what am I trying to say? Yeah, because it was like a pedestal we put certain people on. Like there's like you put your mother on a pedestal. You'll put like a older figure, older brother, cousin, someone that you love and grew up with. Even like sometimes with celebrities too. if that had that much of an impact on your life and just who you are or how you exist. And for you to sometimes hear those like outlandish things, outlandish statements. If I'm just being honest, I can't speak for you all, but even I can say like my mom has said something outlandish, and I'm like, Mom, you can't say that. Like that's not cool to say. But and that you know that's your mom, you know. So like the way you come at somebody in real life, the way you come at somebody you love might be a bit different. But it's like, you know, like if you heard somebody on the street say like put a Molly on a drink, like, you know, you look at them sideways, but because someone that is beloved within our community, you know what I'm saying, or put on a certain pedestal, I think we waive them or give them more chances than you would give like someone you don't know or someone you don't see in that light.
I just wanted to add from what Brandon said, with how dangerous it can be when you kind of value yourself based on how many women you're getting, and it can like lead to predatory behavior. That's something, you know, it's very common. Another thing, like I think we try to like distance ourselves when we see, let's say we value our mothers, like utmost respect for my mom, right? But let's say a young lady that you know, and you hear someone say something that's disrespectful. Obviously, we say something, check the person, but at times there's like this disconnect, and I feel like it's selfish. Like you value your family, you hold them to this high, you know, standard, but when it comes to your brother, your sister, that's not biological to you, we kind of separate ourselves and say maybe it's not my place, or, you know, someone else will check it. But
that's another thing with Black people. We're like, oh, it's not my business. We're really like, you know, about ourselves and our people who like, you know, who are like our family, and like that's kind of it, and our friends. But like, you know, I think that goes to, honestly, we have this like herd or tribal mentality really too, like kind of like us versus them. Again, that stems a lot from really, again, just histories of, you know, racial hierarchy, slavery, everything. It's just a matter of like, you know, having to defend what you have, and like, you know, not having the ability or capability or even like the access to, you know, defend others. But I think that's one thing that, you know, for sure it can be worked on. I mean, we'll talk about that later, like, you know, moving forward steps and stuff like that. But like, yeah, like that kind of herd mentality we have, like, you know, just worrying about our own. I think that further just works to perpetuate it, because there's so much that, like, you know, although like our own is good, they're all consuming this culture that exceeds beyond what we can control and ourselves. So I think that's just one of those things that kind of needs to be, you know, especially regarding rape culture, right? You know, it's okay to, you know, stick up for people who aren't, you know, it may not be your business, but it really is, because it's a part of, like, honestly, it takes realizing that, like, you know, what is your role in it further being perpetuated, right? And it takes experience, it takes seeing it, and like a lot of y'all said, like, you probably didn't realize you were a part of it, or helping perpetuate it until like after the fact, right? By a certain action you may have done, or certain comment you have made, something like that, right? And I think that just goes to show that, one, how normal it is, how difficult it is to, you know, hold yourself accountable to it, but it is a learned thing. All these things are like learned and like normalized structures, but they're not like, you know, they're not cemented. They can be changed.
Starting off, so for me, just always growing up, through grade school or just my parents, always heard that no means no. And you just kind of learn that no means no actually leaves a lot of gray area. And I think that is with the Me Too movement and kind of current social kind of movements, that can still get you in a lot of trouble, especially as a young Black man. And there's a new phrase I heard. It's not no means no, it's yes means yes. The idea of being able to get some type of informed consent from somebody who is able to give consent, isn't under the influence of narcotics or alcohol or passed out. I think that's a lot more holistic understanding of what consent is. And I think that was something that was definitely lacking, at least from my education growing up until, honestly, I really hit college and really understood how that just saying no means no can still get you in a whole lot of trouble. And we see that every day in the media, through social media, through different news outlets.
It's interesting. I'll preface all this with saying, like, I don't agree with like any of this, and like if you don't have consent, a verbal yes, it's not a yes, and I firmly believe that. But like, I can't sit here and like not frankly acknowledge like the difficulty it is, like, as men to understand that, especially like on one end you were told to be the one who's pursuing. You like every single movie storyline about a man who gets the woman is about he gets rejected at first and then he tries harder next time and then he gets her. Like, that is literally like drilled in our culture in every way. That type of patriarchy is even like perpetuated by women back to us, to where like now like you hear no means no, but you also hear like no means try harder. So like, growing up, when like the goal is to get as many as you want, it's like I completely like understand the difficulty in like navigating that space, especially as a young Black man, when like you're just trying to get the next woman, like, you know what I mean, like, to be frank, like, you're just trying to get what you want, and you're like, oh, like, they want me to be the pursuer, and when they say no, that they just mean like, oh, you're not trying hard enough, you're not being cute enough, you're not doing this. So like I completely understand like a Black man like overstepping a boundary because he thinks like that initial no means, oh, you didn't do good enough the first time, try again. But I completely understand why like even a woman who does that, or a man who does that, he assaulted her. You know what I mean? Like, and it's such like that, I struggle having this conversation with women because like I want to be a perspective taking, and I want to hear this, and I want to get that. I want there to be understanding that like myself, like, and that's why like I just like, I need a verbal yes before anything, because like I don't want to question like, did I do this? Did I hurt you? Did I overstep a boundary? But like a lot of men aren't gonna say like that ruins the moment, or like blah blah blah, or like that. Like, so like it's such a difficult balance to find when you're not like in a monogamous relationship, because it's preached to you that like you need to be a go-getter. Otherwise, like, the dude who sits there and he's being, I don't say that, I hate saying the word nice guy because like but the dude who's like being super like passive, I guess is the word, is never going to get any play because she wants someone that's going to take control. But dude takes control, now you're overstepping a boundary and you just assaulted her. So it's such a hard line to balance that I don't know if it's talked about enough, or like, and it's already hard enough to have that conversation between both genders. And yeah, so I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, and like you said, it is hard, and that's why it's like, yeah, of course, it's a system that's been ingrained way before any of our times, right? So of course, it is definitely hard, and like it was a point where you mentioned too, like the patriarchy in this is like so deep that women also help perpetuate, right? They also like are searching these things, right? That's what a lot of them, I mean, definitely not all, like, what they're looking for in someone who's going to take charge, take control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that can mean so many different things. It can lead down a very bad path, right? So I would say too, but you also mentioned like, what you mentioned, shoot. Oh yeah, like, even, monogamous relationships, like that's still, rape can still happen in those cases. Of course, like when you think of like, getting a verbal yes, you think more so like, non-monogamous but still consensual sex and stuff too. But yeah, all these slopes are slippery, but it is a tough thing. But figuring out like, knowing your partner, if it's monogamous, knowing your partner, like knowing kind of what triggers there are for them as far as like, being okay with the certain sexual interaction in this moment, right? And what that will look like.
I feel like a lot of Black men, or maybe like London, or Adam can speak to this too, just being from like Northern California, especially up there, have a flawed understanding of consent, and often like confuse consent or like misuse consent and like coercion. And people don't necessarily see how like those two are a thing. Like, I feel like most men, when they hear the word rape or understand that, they know not our black men know not to, or should know not to hold someone down and do something like that, nothing as aggressive, but people, especially just Northern California, Sacramento, Bay Area, feel like just like as Jacques was saying, that constant pursuit, or just constantly being in our ear, or constantly just asking or something like that, that you're not perpetuating like consent. Like some women will say yes because you are asking too much, or they don't feel safe or something like that. And I feel like because men naturally are like, again, just trying to just conquer, just get as many girls as they want or whatever, they're not thinking about that in that moment, or like how that woman is essentially feeling, or you know what I'm saying? Or even if like they go meet up with their respective young lady, and they go smoke them out, or they gotta do something or give them something. And it's not like it isn't like on some like predatory, but this might be somebody like you just casually kicking it. But because you did bring in like some marijuana, you know what I'm saying, a little a pill, or you feel me, a drink or something like that, you know what I'm saying, like now this person's under the influence and you trying to do something to them. And I feel like that's something that's kind of like brushed under the table. But
yeah, I definitely think coercion is brushed under the table, and I definitely feel like that's where a very good portion of the culture is situated at. And I feel like even with, I agree with Brandon, yes means yes is way better than no means no. And I think to add on to that, a yes should also come with how are they responding to your advances, or not just even in a sexual manner, just in a manner of any situation that you're in. Is that person responding in the same way that you're responding? Is that person, consent can also be taken away at a specific time in an interaction. So we got to be prevalent of that. If somebody wanted you to stop doing something, they also have the right to say no after they said yes. So I think it's one of those things that you got to definitely just be cognizant of in any interaction that you're having with any human being. It's just you need a consent that continues from the start to the finish and every moment in between.
It like people just really think of it as simple, like, yeah, if she shook her head yes, or blah blah blah, or we're in the room together already, might as well, blah blah blah. But yeah, all those things are very slippery slopes, and like if those things aren't thought about, that's what leads to so much. A lot of folks, who have over time didn't even realize that they had performed a rape, right? Because it's like, they are so used to their every encounter being the same that not realizing everyone's different, everyone shows their consent in different ways, and not checking that or making sure that the partner is comfortable in that, it leads to a situation where, someone could be, next thing you know, even if it wasn't their intention to rape, right? It could be found as such. And that's why those things are never things to really play around with, because, I have seen individuals actually, get in trouble for things like that, where, it may have been the direct, intent. However, the action will still happen. So, it really just takes you checking that within yourself, and making sure that you do all your due diligence to make sure that that is worth it. And whether it's about ruining a mood or nothing, fuck that. It's more, it's better that you're protecting yourselves, both of you, or whatever, how many partners we engage with in the situation, because that can just lead to further investing in cultures that we're trying to strike down.
I'll say, I think one of the hard things is like your ego, right? When you do hear that no, and now you have to pull back, step away, and understand like the situation now. And when you put yourself out there and you get rejected by someone, some people take it not in the best way, and that could lead to really dangerous situations.
Just adding on what Denonye said, because about the leading to dangerous situations, I know you guys seen recently a woman when she was attacked outside of some store outside, and then the community ended up, like a few days later, they ended up coming out there. But I think a guy literally bit her on the face and did some other stuff because she was not responding to his advances. So it's like the fact that some people are literally like, that led you to that's like an animal. Like you bit somebody because they didn't want you and they were not responding to you. That's actually somebody feels comfortable enough, and it's a group. The fact that they feel comfortable enough to do an act such of that, and like that's normal. And even between themselves, that's normal. Nobody was like, "Don't do that." And I don't know. That is very true. That can lead to very dangerous situations.
Yeah, nah, it's crazy because that's actually pretty much like, well, not down the block, but like I stayed in Harlem, like not too far. Like I've been around that way, and that's another point. Like thinking about that pyramid, catcalling is another one of those things. You know, so yeah, and that was just crazy to hear that story. I don't know if y'all saw one of the dudes got ran down on in New York. Like they like it was a whole bunch of people ran down on him, like stomped him out. But it one of the things that I think about is I think there has been a more conscious effort around educating younger people about consent. And from an age appropriate standpoint, especially like with little kids, things as simple as, I don't want a high five, or I don't want a hug right now. Or like if say like my nephew comes over and I'm like, yo, come give me a high five, come give your uncle a hug. If the kid don't want to give you a hug or a high five, like it's cool, like whatever. So just things as simple as that, like you don't have to give them a hug, you don't have to give them a high five if you're not feeling it. And it's things as simple as that, teaching to a kid that they can begin to understand, like, I have autonomy over my body, other people do as well, and they have that right. And you don't need to convince anybody that they should do this or do that if they're not comfortable with doing so.
Great point. I think that's how you like work to normalize new thought, new action, and just a new mindset. Because really, we asked earlier, like, kind of why why consent isn't a thing that, or why does it feel awkward or whatever. It's because like consent isn't normalized, right? Look at everything we watch here, whatever. Like in the lyrics, they never say like, "Oh, I asked her first before I did," like there's not a part of the thing. So when thinking about it, like that's like, oh, it's kind of weird to do that, right? And I think I'm thankful now we're in a time where it's like starting to become, I mean, still largely popularly it's not, but I would say we're in time now where those who care to be embraced with it are starting to learn about it. But like Mike was saying, like it starts young, right? You learn these things young, and especially young boys and young girls, like you taught to, be tough and all that stuff as boys. Girls are taught to be kind of more, reserved, all these little things that, speaking against those things and stop, the way that we often, I would say definitely in Black communities too, like, the way that patriarchy is structured in Black communities, the way like the gender roles and things are set up, that all goes into like normalizing what they think is right and okay. And like you said, normalizing, like, no, not wanting to give, someone a hug or a high five or whatever, like knowing it's okay to do that, right? Rather than you didn't have a choice. Because usually when you're kids, you're like, you don't have, you're a child, you don't have a choice. That's kind of what a lot of us are growing up on, at least me, right? You do what you're told, and that's it. So you kind of grow up thinking like, especially from an elder person, or like if, in pursuit of a woman, like I got to do this, I got to do this. But at a young age, when you're taught that it's okay that you don't do that, right? It's okay that you wait. It's okay that, all these things like, losing. I remember in high school, and like college, like losing virginity was like a game. It was like a contest, like who can do it first type of thing. All these little things that early on in your life, if you're taught against that, that's what brings in a new culture of what's normalized, to a point that I hope one day consent, asking for these things, is like it'll be a problem. Like, wow, you don't ask for second consent. Like it becomes a thing that's like, it's weird if you don't, right? Now it's kind of like it feels awkward if you do, and that's because it's so against what is, perpetuated in histories of like, dominance, and like especially like a male dominance over the body.
But this whole thing on consent, I would also say really goes back to what we were saying about rape culture. Like even in the little things we do, like we'll watch TV or something like that, and like you'll see shows like, okay, if a dude tries to get at a girl and he constantly gets rejected, right? But like if he could, eventually continues to pursue her and pursue her, that she'll eventually like him.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. And also, uh, it's our ego, right? A hyper masculine culture, not being able to handle rejection and a lot of other things like that as well. So yeah, it all connects into one, and it's a big onion to to unlayer.
No, definitely. This idea that it's like, it's all a competition, a game. All right, cool. Like she's fighting me off, I'm gonna win the war later on. Like it's a battle. When in actuality, it's just like count your losses and move on. And like, but yeah,
Exactly.
above all, it's the ego thing, right? And like that goes to largely about idea of a black mass, kind of history of like masculinity in general, but specifically to a black masculinity of like uh wanting ownership of something, right? Feeling like something is yours or whatever that may look like. And I think that always has like a history that it goes to like, finances, home, bodies, like, and like, especially in a patriarchal or like, heterosexual sense, um, popularly is a kind of control over the household and everyone that's a part of it, including women, right? So I think that just goes to, this idea of an ego is huge. It's a huge part of it, right? And it's like this embarrassing thing if like you're, either ignored or like, or a woman doesn't want you. It's like, this idea that a woman can't choose that, it has to be the man's choice too.
I think accountability deals with dealing with it yourself on a personal level, checking yourself, making sure you're trying not to perpetuate the whole culture. It also is making sure people around you are not literally doing things to harm people. And I think another thing that we got to address is also how in our life, whether that be the jobs we do, the relationships we have, how are we contributing to that culture? Because I feel like at some point, like at some level, everyone does. I personally could say me, like being involved in the media industry and like doing stuff regarding that. I've shot videos, I've shot commercials where we are literally, if you may, like literally treating a woman like a piece of property, like literally, like they're telling her drop her clothes, do this, do that, shit, do whatever. So I feel like it's, you just got to really check yourself and check the things that you're doing in your own personal life.
Kind of like Isaiah said, I think it's important that you checking the people around you, because I realized too that I have certain friends from high school or college, undergrad specifically, where like I realized that, and people I realized that sometimes the friends you make in life, like they're your friends for that season of your life, right? And like, I think that's a thing. Like, when you realize, like, I remember I like had to talk to a friend about just how he sees, because I'm talking to a friend of mine talking about like transgender rights and everything, and I realized that I really didn't mess with the way that he talked about trans people, right? So I like kind of veered off, didn't talk as much anymore. Right now we hang out, we like catch up every now and then, but I would consider us like friends, like we were, right? So things like that, I realized that I was trying so hard to keep this friendship that I was like compromising things I feel about about like people and about how they talk and like hateful messaging and stuff. And I realized that there's this kind of fear of not losing people you've been cool with and all these things. So like you might be uncomfortable with something, but you don't say it, or you just like keep it all inside. And what it does, that works to continuously perpetuate things. That's not holding anyone accountable, of course. And I think of it all the time. Like I'm thinking, like if I lose a friend over saying something like that, like about like ridding them of like or not talking about hate speech around me, then that's someone I could probably be cool with not really being around as much. It'd probably be better for me anyway, right? So little things like that, when you think about just like how you can hold folks accountable and like knowing that it's okay for people to be friends in certain seasons of your life where you may not have been as matured, or may have not felt similar ways or whatever. You may have felt similar to them at one point, and then when more knowledge comes, like having to realize like how you're going to use that knowledge and how you're going to help people to think differently. And like if folks are really all like hanging on to this like hate speech, rape culture, whatever it may be, express how you feel to them, and hopefully that resonates with them in the future. But those people, probably you should like express how you feel and keep it pushing, because continuously being with them in effect is you working to perpetuate it as well too, because now it's like you're a part of their network of individuals, whether you're into the things that they believe in or not, people will see you as such.
And piggybacking off that, I think a very necessary first step is awareness, self-awareness, and also reflection. I think in general with sexual violence and sexual rape culture, sexual assault, there's this otherness aspect to it. It's terrible, yes, but I'm not doing that, or my friend group isn't doing that. And I think in order to make tangible steps forward, you do have to kind of sit down and ask yourself, like, how have I perpetuated this culture? Okay, I might not have sexually assaulted anybody, but what have I done to maybe push that agenda? How have I not checked a homie? How have I made someone maybe feel uncomfortable in a scenario? Might not have been intentional, but how did my lack of handling of a situation in a suitable manner put someone in a very uncomfortable situation? Just having that kind of self-awareness to sit back and see how your past self might have in any way pushed this rape culture agenda forward. I think without that first step, I don't see us ever moving forward just as a community and just as Black men in general.
I guess I'll add also just consistency with checking people in person as well as online and group chats. I remember, what was it? Kick Messenger back in the day was crazy, you know? So you have to be focused in person, online, and not being afraid to be quote unquote the party pooper type of person, because it's a lot of the things I've seen being spoken in group chats, it's not a party at all, you know?